All right, sorry about the delay. Um, yeah, okay, first we can get started with taking attendance. Actually, let me make sure that I'm recording before I start. I wonder why the camera isn't showing up. Mm, okay, there we go. Okay, and then first we'll start with taking attendance. And here is the QR code. The number of the day is number 4. Yeah, and today we'll be going over fragments and networking, a little bit of networking. Um, this lecture might be split into 2 parts. We might do like the first part of this today and a little bit Wednesday during discussion, and then get on with the rest of the discussion. So be forewarned. Um, oh, okay. The mic, why do I, what? Oh, is the mic okay? Yeah, the mic is on. Yeah, don't worry about it. Okay. So let's start off with a few announcements. The hack challenge is coming soon, sooner than you think. I think it starts ramping up right after spring break. We'll have like the kickoff, and then you'll be formed into teams and stuff like that. So think about any feasible ideas of what app that you would like to make, because once you form a team, then you'd have to present an idea for you guys to do for your hat challenge. So start thinking of those ideas now, so you don't get hung up later. If you guys have any ideas for bonus lecture topics, feel free to let us know. We have a few slated, I think, but if you guys want to see anything in particular, you can let us know. And yes, the midterm feedback form was due. Thank you guys for contributing and sharing your notes. In last class, we went over a little bit of recycled views. And this is just recycled views and list views. Mainly we went over recycled views. This just gives you a quick preview, a quick review of what we did. So recycled views are an industry standard way of making list-based apps, list-based views. It requires 6 things: the data to display, the recycled view object, the layout that specifies how a cell looks like, your layout manager, your data adapter, and then your view holder. And the view holder helps to reduce duplicate calls to find view by ID, because find view by ID is a costly method to do because you have to look for each of the individual views. So the view holder helps to recycle those calls and duplicate those calls. And the list view is just used for if you want to make a simple text-based list, but recycle view is definitely more efficient and industry standard. So yeah. And then now we'd be shifting over to the main topic for today, which is fragments. So what I've kind of been alluding to fragments throughout the course, but I haven't actually explained what it is. So today we're going to do that. So what exactly is a fragment? A fragment represents a reusable portion of your app's UI. Actually, do you mind closing the door? Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, a fragment defines and manages its own layout, and it has its own lifecycle, and it can handle its own input events. Fragments cannot live on their own. They have to be attached to some activity or some other fragments. So fragments can have other fragments as their own children, or activities can host plenty of other fragments themselves. So like the fragment view hierarchy is kind of attached to like the host view hierarchy. So if your host dies, the activity is destroyed, and so are the fragments. And here we have kind of 3 screens, and each of these like middle screens here are fragments. So this is just highlighting, so in the first screen here, the purple is just highlighting like what parts are constituting the main activity. The main activity hosts kind of like the bottom navigation view, which we'll also talk about today. And then this like top bar view that has like the eatery and then the search icon in the map. And then also similarly for the rest of the screens with the tabs. And then what's actually in the middle is the fragments, which host the compartmentalized like UI elements for those specific views. So for example, for the home screen here, we have a fragment that just displays the eateries and then like the filters. And then the second fragment displays kind of what is on the map, displays the menu for each equivalent day. And then the third fragment is kind of responsible for your profile view. So this is basically one activity, and it's just swapping fragments in and out to cater to the needs of what we need at the time. So, and they're catered to kind of like what we need tab-wise. So in the case of the home tab, we have this fragment, and it's swapped for the second one once we tap this tab, and the third for the profile tab. So yes, as I said before, fragments live inside the activities and are not declared in your manifest like you would an activity. So why exactly should we use fragments? Fragments introduce modularity and reusability in your activities UI by allowing you to divide your UI into discrete chunks. Activities are an ideal place to put global elements around your app's user interface, such as like navigation elements, like you saw before with kind of like the bottom navigation tabs. But fragments are better suited to define and manage UI for a single screen or portion of the screen. And the life cycle events like we talked about for activities like the on create, on destroy, on stop, on pause. It's very similar for fragments, just that the main difference is that fragments are of course tied to if an activity has multiple fragments, and the fragments themselves are attached to the life cycle of the activity. But at the same time, the fragments, if you destroy a fragment, since the fragment is a child of the activity, it doesn't really affect the life cycle of the activity itself. But of course, if you destroy um, your main activity here, then all the fragments are destroyed too. And this next part just kind of goes over the code for kind of like how a fragment works, but we're going to get more into this later during our demo. So, any questions so far? Okay. So how exactly do we integrate fragments into our activities? Fragments can be added programmatically through or to an existing view group. I think we went over frame layouts like week 1 or week 2. Usually frame layouts are used for the purpose of like hoisting fragments because fragments are used to block out areas that are required to fit like the largest child view. So if you use a frame layout as a fragment container, then you can ensure that you'll always have space to accommodate your largest fragment. So if you have fragments of varying sizes, um, the frame layout will account for the space that will take up the largest one. And you can also add a fragment directly in your XML, which we'll also show too. And a fragment, as it comes to activity, kind of has two parts. So at runtime, we have a fragment manager, and the fragment manager can add, remove, replace, and perform other actions with fractions in response to user interaction. And each set of fragment change that you commit is called a transaction. And you can specify what you want to do inside that transaction using the APIs provided by this fragments transactions class. So for example, if I wanted to add or replace or delete fragments, then that would be considered a transaction, and the fragment transaction class can help us do that. So this is just more concretely what I mean by like a transaction. These are just two examples. So you have your support fragment manager, and then you're using that to begin transactions to both. In the top example here, you're adding a fragment to a container, and in the second example, you're replacing a fragment. These are both examples of transactions. More on this in the demo. But yeah, in the first part of like, so in this top transaction here, you have add, and it specifies a fragment container. So the ID is most likely like that ID is probably referring to a frame layout, which then is added, and then this fragment A is added directly to that fragment container. And then in the second example, the fragment B is used to replace whatever is in that container. And then next, we're going to transition to navigation. Fragments and navigation are very much tied together. I mean, you saw previously with the eater example how you had like the bottom navigation view, and then you had the multiple fragments that transition between the different views. So fragments are very conducive to helping us navigate between different screens. And then first, we'll introduce like two ways that Android offers navigation natively. So the first way is we have this like bottom navigation, the bottom navigation view, which is kind of like the tab you see at the bottom here. This is Starbucks as an example. It has like 5 tabs where you have like the home, the scanning, the order, and then you can see, I think that's your profile. So bottom navigation bars make it easy for users to explore and switch between top level views on a single tap. They should be used when an application has 3 to 5 like destinations. In this case, Starbucks has 5 at the bottom here. I think Eatery has like 3, if I remember correctly. So it's very conducive to like the fragment pattern where each of these different tabs are represent fragments themselves. So why do we need a bottom navigation bar? The bottom navigation bar allows it makes users aware of different screens available on the app. It makes them easily interactable. The user is able to check which screen they are on at any moment, as you see here at the bottom with the first example, first screenshot, like the order tab is highlighted, so the user knows that they're on the order fragment or the order screen. And the second example of navigation here too, it's in the same screenshot, is a tab layout. So a tab layout provides like a horizontal layout to display tabs. Um, so if I click on a tab, then it'll also transition between fragments. So like a tab layout can be within a fragment as well, as you see in this like first example here, where this fragment has a tab layout, which then puts it further into more fragments to transition between these different tabs. A tab layout can be combined with another view called a view pager, which allows you to swipe to transition between tabs and automatically transitions between the tabs attached to those tabs, and automatically transitions between the fragments attached to those tabs as well. So if I swipe right or left, the view pager and the tab layout will both combine to kind of automatically know which fragment is attached to whatever tab, and it'll switch it out for me automatically. Both of these navigation methods are very easy to implement. Like there's not much overhead at all. I think Android does a lot of the work also for you. So it's just a matter of what do you want to have tab-wise, and what do you want to transition between those tabs as well. And next, I want to quickly go over sharing data between fragments. Often you want one fragment to communicate with another. For example, to change the content based on a user event. So if I click on a button on A, that should do something in fragment B. But all fragment to fragment communication is done through the activity. So two fragments should never communicate directly with each other. We want fragments to be reusable, so they shouldn't be dependent on other fragments. They should be completely self-contained, so that we can duplicate them and use them without having any other dependencies. So now we have this activity as a mediator between the two fragments, and how can we use the activity as a way to transfer data? I think last class we went over like the interface callback pattern. You can employ something very similarly here for um, this like fragment to fragment communication. So if I wanted to pass data from fragment A to fragment B, I would create an interface in fragment A, and then I'd have the activity implement that interface to then pass the information along to fragment B, either using bundles or intents. So this just shows more specifically like the pathing. It goes from A to activity to B, and then it shows us the steps. It creates an interface, and then the activity implements the interface and creates the bundle, and then the activity also transfers the bundle alongside to fragment B, and fragment B can then get the bundle and do whatever it needs to with the given information. So yeah, the method introduced today uses the callback pattern, which is a quick way to pass small amounts of information between fragments. However, when you're working with a lot of data traveling between two fragments, it can kind of be difficult to keep track of all the different interface methods that you have to be implementing. So um, it's so there's two other solutions that you can kind of look into. You have live data, which is a solution that was offered by Google sometime I think 2 years ago. Um, yeah, live data, is very easy to implement, and it allows you to transfer a lot of complex information very easily. And you also have singleton classes as well. And then next, we're going to go into a soft intro to networking. We're going to do networking more so. We're going to do a lot of networking next class after spring break. We want to give you guys a soft introduction to kind of networking in Android and how that works, and then networking in general too. So we'll give you some information about that. So what is the purpose of networking? So networking allows us to get information from the internet, and it allows us to pull data from the cloud in real time and also post data to the cloud in real time as well. When we're interacting with the backend, that is the essence of what networking is, because we are transferring data to the backend and then getting it back as well to then display UI in our app or to get the profile information of a user, etc., etc. Most apps that you create are going to be connected to the internet and use the internet in some way. So using the internet and networking allows you to access kind of like a world of possibilities of what you can do. And a lot of networking also is in the use of APIs. That's an example of networking as well. So that's just another way of how the internet is connected to, of how apps can use the internet to their advantage to network and transfer information. These are just like common HTTP request types. So you have get, post, put, and delete. And then you also have head, trace, options, connect, and patch. I guess as an Android developer, what you'll most likely be interacting with are get and post requests. So get just retrieves information from the internet. So as you're browsing, when you're browsing like on Firefox or on Google Chrome or on Safari, you're literally just like executing various GET requests to various websites. So if I go to google.com, that's me executing a GET request to get Google on my browser. And then when I post information, so slash when I'm like submitting a form when I'm logging in, that's me submitting a post request to that website to submit my information to get information back to log me in. So every day, everywhere, you're always executing HTTP requests. You might not even know it. So it's kind of crazy. And this just kind of goes over like the structure of how HTTP request works. You have your header, which contains information about the request, and then you have the body, which actually is like the meat of the request. It has all the information that would be required by the API or by the post request or by the GET request as well. That's where everything goes. And then the server, once you actually submit this request, the server will respond accordingly. So if you're doing a GET request, you'll get your information, or if you're doing a post request, you're not getting any information back. But what you could get is a confirmation that your information was posted successfully. You might also get an error, which we'll talk about too. So Android offers a lot. There's been a lot of libraries developed over time to kind of help with networking. We'll introduce you to OK HTTP in this class, but there's a lot that you can explore to kind of fit your needs. You have Retrofit, which is by Square also, as OK HTTP is. You have other libraries like Volley, Ion, Android Async, and then the Fast Android Networking library. Right, and an essential part to networking are permissions. Is a certain permission. So if you want to access the internet, you have to include these two lines. But these lines are so common that they're considered normal. They're considered normal permissions. So you don't have to go through like the complex path of asking for asking for permission. They deny it, going through that callback and back and forth. It's a simple adding to manifest, and then boom, you'll automatically have those permissions. So it's pretty nice. And you have to have these if you want to do any kind of network, internet access, networking, etc., etc. Right. So I kind of alluded to this earlier of like post requests. So if you're doing a post request, you might get kind of you might get like a status code that tells you like what information if your request was successful, if it wasn't. These are just the various kind of codes that you'll get back. So if you get one XX, that's an informational response. Informational response. If you get two XX, that means that your post request was successful. If you get 3XX, you might get a redirect, and then you have your client error and server error as 4XX, 5XX. I know for sure we've definitely run into a few 404 errors during our time browsing the internet, so you might be already familiar with some of these errors that as you come with being on the internet and browsing. And then here's just a nice meme of how codes work 4XX, 5XX. And then here's kind of like explicitly how like a 404 would look like as you come along internet browsing. Very not nice to run into. Can be kind of frustrating, but yeah. And then so next we'll just transition to that's the end of I guess the lecture portion of today, and then we'll transition to the demoing part. We will show you a little bit of fractions and navigation if you have time. Just fragments, okay.
Oh no, is that fraction? No.
I keep saying fractions for some reason. It's really bad. Sorry, English is not my first language, so
What?
yeah, it's
I
not.
thought English was language.
No, I struggle with it every day. Um, yeah, I'll stop. Here you go.
I'm okay, no, it's Okay, so one of the commonly used way to have a fragment inside is when you're using a thing called view pager. So view pager is basically something that you can contains a lot of fragments of like similar style layouts inside of it. It's kind of a recycled view of screens. Basically, screen page is like it's a recycled view of big layouts. So I will just go to the XML file and then there is a view pager and a view pager 2. We use view pager 2. I think view pager by itself is deprecated. And then I will have the word to be match parent. I would not need this. Look at my phone.
Oh, of course.
Yes. Okay, so next we would like to create a few fragments that will be containing those view pages. So nice thing about Android Studio is it gives you templates. So you click on Java and then new, go to the bottom, you see fragments. There's a lot of things here that you can discover like which one my feature needs more, but I'm just gonna use a blank fragment here. And then I'm gonna name it fragment A. Okay, there's a well-structured fragment code here. So let's see what is inside. There is an onCreate method and onCreate view, very familiar stuff. There's one very important stuff is the companion object. You have to have this for all of the fragments because it will help you to navigate between different fragments. So it's kind of like a constructor for fragments. You see new instance here and with like parameters, you can change roles. Like you can change this to have only just one parameters with your needs. And in this case, I guess I would just have it, I would just make it like one parameter. So once a fragment constructor is getting called, um, you will get like a parameter from the constructor, and then the parameter will get passed to the onCreate method. So you can further use this whatever parameter that you pass in here to maybe pass this data to like one of the components in your layout and things like that. You can do it as whatever like way you want. We're gonna create another fragment just so you will see like the transition between fragment kind of thing. So I'm gonna name it fragment B. Yeah, I'll just leave it as two parameter. Okay, going back to the main activity, I'm gonna find view by ID the view pager that I just created. And again, I forgot to give it ID. I'm gonna give it ID of the VP. Okay, so as I talked about, view pager fragments are kind of similar to like a recycler view. Recycler view need adapter, so view pager also need an adapter. So we're gonna create that. I'm gonna create a new code on class that contains the adapter of the view pager. And it's gonna take in a fragment activity. And the view pager adapter is gonna extend. Actually, is it extend or is it extend? Okay. Fragment state fragment state adapter. And it's also gonna have a parameter of fragment activity. And it's gonna ask me to implement those functions. So get item count is how many fragments do you have inside the view pager. So in this case, I will have two. So I'm just gonna do return two. What is important is over here. It's gonna ask you what do you want to appear, like which fragment do you want to appear first. So if you're at position 0, fragment A is gonna appear. If you're at position 1, fragment B is gonna appear, or you can do it whatever order you want. And yeah, this is kind of like a, I'm not sure if you guys have seen this syntax before, but this is kind of like a switch syntax. And one important thing is that you also have to have an else. Like if it's none of that, what's gonna happen? It's kind of like required. I'm just gonna say if it's anything else, it's just gonna throw an arrow. It's very likely not gonna happen. It's very likely it's not supposed to get here. Okay. Actually, I think for those fragments, I don't have a particular parameter I want to pass in, so I'm actually just gonna delete the parameter that is asking. This is fine. Fragment B. It's over here. Okay, and then I will go back to the main page. Have upager set the adapter to be the adapter that I just created. Let's see. Actually, I'm gonna make fragment 1 and fragment A and B looks a little bit different, so you guys will see the difference here. Oops. Okay. Let's see. Am I missing anything? Hope not. Okay. So yes, now you can see two fragments going back and forth. You can create more if you want, but this is just a simple example. So what if you have like a button inside fragment A, and when you click on it, you want to change the text inside fragment B? What if you want that? And this is when transaction and fragment manager comes into play. So first of all, I will go to fragment A to have this thing called a data passer. It's kind of like the callback thing that we learned about in the recycler view, but it's basically an interface inside fragments that help you to pass data around. And I do not know how to spell the interface. And inside it, I kind of have an unclick, or you can call it however you want. And it's gonna take a position. So the position will be like which fragment am I currently on, or like whatever you want to pass in actually. Actually, you can put it like whatever you want to pass in. In this case, I'm just gonna make it like a position int. And then I'm gonna create an instance that's of the type of the the interface I just created. So it's late initiated. I'm just gonna call it like callback. Data. Wait, yeah. Okay. And I think it's inside the onCreate view that I will actually initiate the callback. And I'm gonna add a button in fragment A. So when the button is getting clicked, I'm gonna make it do something. So I need a button first. Say change. I'm gonna make it margin top 40. And I'm gonna give it ID. ID would just be button. No creativity, sorry. And going back to the fragment, I wanna like get the button that I just created. So instead of just directly say find view by ID, I actually do something different here. Wait. So if I do find view by ID, it would not know like what I am talking about. So instead I will be doing container find view by ID. The container is basically kind of this whole fragment container fragment layout. I think I might also have to check if it's null. Actually, let me just try if it's not. Okay, yeah, I think I need to do a null check here. Right. I'm gonna claim it's not null. Wait. Wait a second. Why is it saying this is null? Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna declare this is not gonna be null. Okay, and then I just do unclick listener for this button. And inside of the unclick listener, I will just call the I will just define whatever the data pass, like what does the data pass thing do? I will passing a position like 0. Or I can actually passing a string. Let me just do that. Oh, actually, okay. So, and then I can go back to the main activity, and this is where I'm gonna do all of the fragment manager thing. So first of all, I'm gonna pass the change from fragment A to fragment B. So I'm first gonna um construct or like declare a fragment B. And then I'm gonna create a bundle. It's kind of like what you do like in the intent that you create a bundle, you put extra inside of it. Um, okay, and then I actually have to have the main activity implement the interface that I just created inside fragment A. and it's gonna ask me to like implement this here. Oh, I actually just realized this is supposed to go into the unclick. Sorry guys. I was like, wait. Um, so yes, making a constructor of this fragment B and also the bundle all go into this function inside the interface, not onCreate. And then I'm gonna have fragment B to take in this like bundle that I just created. So it'll be set argument or argument because two args. And inside fragment B, on create view, I need to get the argument. I'll just delete this because this is an example of passing things kind of more internally, but I'm giving an example of passing it like externally. So first of all, I'm gonna get the bundle back. So it'll be bundle get argument. Oh, okay. Yeah, it might be null, so this is why I need to do a null check. So this is basically what I pass in here. You will then go to here. And then I'm gonna get the string. But the thing is, I want to set the string to be whatever, like I'm gonna replace this text with whatever the string I just passed in. So in this case, I'm actually gonna get the component programmatically for fragment B text view. So again, inside the onCreate view, I will do something like container get view by ID, find view by ID. Okay. And in this case, I'm gonna have like a global variable that's gonna be assigned to whatever this bundle passing. So I'm gonna call the global variable like just yeah, parameter one is fine actually. Wait, how to spell parameter? Here. Parameter one equals to b to string b get string tag if it's not null. And then I'm gonna set text view to be I'm gonna set text view text to equals to parameter one. Okay, and then go back to the main activity. We need to create a support fragment manager to finish this all up. So I'm gonna name it transaction. And then fragment manager. Okay, so basically, I'm asking like when a button is clicked inside fragment A, I'm gonna ask fragment B to change its like layout a bit. So in this case, I need to replace the old fragment with the new fragment. So I have to do this kind of transaction inside. So I actually have to give this fragment B an ID. And then I'm gonna commit transaction. Let's see. Oh, whoops. Oh, did it crash? Oh, that's sad. Let's see what went wrong.
Oh.
Wait, is it saying that no pointer except? Why is it no? Is it not usually how you do it, or is it? Yeah, I think a lot of the null thing is messing it up. Let me just check.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is also the null thing. Okay, yeah, using the double like exclamation mark is dangerous. No check.
Oh.
Wait, but this is not changing it. What do I
No,
want it
it's
to
not
change?
changing it.
Oh. Let's see if text is. This is the right tag. Instead of changing the text, let me see if it actually got here. Not console log. Wait, what is? Oops.
Maybe you can fix this on Wednesday.
Yeah, sure. We can do a fix on Wednesday. It's actually past the time.
Yeah, it's past time, so I don't know if
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. We'll fix it on Wednesday. But yeah, do you guys have any questions about how to create like a view pager fragments? Good. Okay. Thank you guys for coming. See you guys on Wednesday. I don't remember. I don't remember.
I think what you can do, right? You can take this bit of code here,
Uh-huh.
to the inflator inflate, right? And you can create a val root view equals
Yeah.
inflator inflate.
Oh, then it's root view find view by ID.
And that isn't null. And then you can do root view find view by ID.
Yeah, but I think it's not that problem. Like for the change.
Yeah, something is going on, but there was saying that container is null for some reason. So yes.
Yeah.
Give me a second. Sorry.
Oh.
It's gonna do r.id.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know
Yeah,
what you
yeah.
mean.
Yeah, yeah. Give me a second. Sorry.
Me no remember. We need to change the textbook then.
Oh,
I'm gonna run a debugger.
Or two things. The attendance, the room break, etc. I cannot like use the room.
Are you logged into your Cornell?
I tried through my computer as well, and it didn't work.
Interesting. Is your computer logged into your Cornell email?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. All right.
Oh, just stop recording.